Okay, so welcome back to lecture once again, guys. Now, in my previous lecture, I was talking about a customer churn project, and we were able to do each and everything in my local system. Plus, we were able to test our front end as well as in like our back end in my local system. Now, in this particular lecture, so I'll be talking about how to convert any of your project as a Docker so that you will be able to deploy as a Docker image, and it is going to be a platform independent because Docker is nothing but a kind of a mini operating system in which you are going to bundle up your entire code and you will be able to productionize it on any platform. So that is something that we are going to see in this lecture. So we are going to convert our project as a Docker project, and then in my next lecture, so we will try to deploy it. So first of all, we'll try to deploy a backend, and then we are going to deploy a front end. So let me share my screen. So here what we are going to do is that we are going to convert first of all our project as a Docker file or as a Docker image, you can say. And once we'll be able to convert our entire file as a Docker image or entire code base as a Docker image, then we can try to productionize it on any given platform that we want. So maybe a render, maybe a Streamlit. So for sure, I'm going to show you those deployments. But yeah, so here, first of all, we have two components. So we have a very first component called as backend, which will be having our model file, and we will be having a second component as a front end, right? Front end. So which will be having a Streamlit application, a front end application. So now what we are going to, so we are going to convert this backend as a Docker, right? And then we are going to deploy this Docker image on a platform called as render. So which is going to give you a free access. So without even adding your card, you all will be able to deploy your application with the minimalistic configuration in a easiest possible way if your entire file is available as a Docker. So now let me open up a VS Code, and we are going to copy each and everything inside our new directory. So here, first of all, try to open up one folder. So I'm going to open up a new folder over here, and CUST/CHURN deploy final. Yeah. So this is the directory which I'm going to create. Now inside this directory, so we are going to create our backend and frontend folder. Same thing, right? So whatever model that we have built, so we are going to keep all of this model, all of this file inside this directory. So first is going to be backend, BACKEND backend, and then a second folder which I am going to create is called as frontend. Fine. Now inside this backend directory, so we are going to keep our model. So this was my model that I have built. So let me keep a model over here, H5 file, and then we are going to keep our scalar file. So because this is also a model for converting our entire data set, input data set into a standard scalar format. Same thing, right? So these two models we have already saved in my previous lecture. So we are going to use the exact same thing. Then we are going to place a main.py file. So where we have basically this backend, and we are trying to expose that as a fast API. Same thing, right? So no changes at all in our code. Then we are going to copy basically a requirement.txt file because this is something that system will try to deploy. So now let's try to reiterate all of these files once again. So these two, so pickle file, scalar.pickle file is required because whenever I'm going to input the data, so it should be able to convert our data set into a standard scalar format, because this is what we have done even at the time of training, right? And even at the time of testing. Now, second file, this is a model file. H5 file is basically a model file which is going to predict a customer churn 1 or 0. And this is my code file, and this code file is exactly same as before. So I have just changed this model path and a scalar path because I'm trying to deploy something in a global environment. So it should be able to recognize these two files, and keeping that in mind. So these two things I have written in this particular manner. The rest of the things is completely fine. So we are trying to do a prediction on this particular URL, right? This particular URL is going to help me out in terms of doing a prediction. In my local system, so it was localhost and port number. Now in a global, so there will be a URL, a global URL I will be able to get. Rest is exactly same. There is no changes, means no changes at all. Okay, so here is a backend that we are able to keep. Now inside our front end, so we can try to keep basically our Streamlit app. And obviously we can try to keep over here a requirement.txt file. So now inside this requirement.txt file, I just need streamlit, streamlit, and requests request. So these are the only two installation which is required. Apart from that, there is no other installation which is required. And I'm going to deploy a front end and a back end separately, because this is how we work, or this is what we do even in a production grade environment. So my backend file and my front end file is ready. Now, if you will look into my streamlit app.py file, so as of now, there is a localhost / predict. I'm not going to use this localhost, because once my app will be global, so this is not going to work, right? This is not going to work, obviously. So we have to get a new URL. So when I'm going to deploy a backend, and I have to change this URL with the new URL after doing a deployment. Okay. Now, so moving along with this first line. So first of all, we have a backend code. Now I'll try to convert my backend code into a Docker file, and we are going to test it in a local, that whether this is working in my local or not. Once it is working in a local, then we can try to push it in a global environment, which is a render environment, or maybe in some other environment, we can try to push it. Simple. So first of all, we have a backend. How we can convert this backend file or this backend as a Docker. So here I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to name it as a DOCKER and FILE. So D capital. So D capital, and you should not miss the file name. So it should be same as it is. Now inside this, we are going to keep a couple of lines, and these lines are going to help me out in terms of doing a deployment. Now, what is the meaning of these lines? Let's try to understand that particular part. So meaning of these lines are very simple. The very first line which I have written, so it is trying to say that, okay, so whenever you are trying to create a container, a kind of a box, you can say, right? As a beginner, you can say that this is a box that we are creating, in which we are going to install a Python 3.10 with a image which is a lightest possible image. And technically it is going to use a Debian based image, or you can say operating system in a layman way, right? Operating system in a layman way. So it is going to commence an operating system. Inside that, it is going to install a Python 3.10 for me. Now inside that, it is going to create a working directory called as app. And inside that, it is going to copy all the code that I'm trying to keep inside a backend directory. Simple, right? And then in that environment, it is going to install this requirement.txt. So whatever I have mentioned for this particular project, if your project is going to change, so obviously your requirement.txt component or content is going to change. So this is what I'm trying to say, that, okay, so try to upgrade it and then try to install it. And once it will be done, right? Once it will be done. So the way we are trying to make our app up and running in our local system, so wherever I'm trying to use it, do the same thing. So uecon main.app. So inside a main, we have an app, and then we have given this 0.0.0.0 universal port number. And here take this particular universal IP address, by the way, and take this 10,000 port number, and then try to make my app up and running. So only this much is required to convert my entire application as a Docker file. Okay, that's cool. Now, how we are going to test it? How we are going to test it in my local environment? Let's try to talk about that particular part as well. So if you have to test it in your local environment, so what you have to do, go to Google and then try to search for Docker download. Yeah, Docker download. And it is going to give you multiple links. Now try to go to one of the link, a very first one. And then from here, so you will be able to download a Docker desktop so that you will be able to test it. Doesn't matter which operating system you are trying to use. So for Mac, for Windows, as well as for a Linux, it's already available. So let's suppose I'm going ahead with the Windows system, then I will try to click over here, and in some time, so it is going to download it. Click, and I will be able to do the installation. Yeah, I will be able to do the installation. And then if you are going to search a Docker, so if you are going to search a Docker, you will be able to see a Docker desktop, just the way I am able to see it. So installation is not at all tough, and this is the particular link that you have to go ahead with. Let me copy this link and let me keep this link in some of the files. So maybe inside this main file, I'm going to keep this Docker link over here. Fine. So you can just go over there, try to download it, and then try to make it up and running. So here is my Docker. Here is my Docker desktop. So you have to do a sign up. So just try to go to like a sign up option, try to log in, and then try to do the sign up, and it will be done. Now, once this part is done, once your Docker is up and running, so there will be nothing inside your Docker, by the way. So you will be able to see a same kind of a screen the way I'm able to see it. There is nothing inside a Docker as of now. Now I have to test my application. So how I will be able to test my application? Let me show you that particular part. So we are currently into this particular directory. Yeah, we are currently into this particular directory. If I have to test my Docker, right? If I have to test my Docker, so what I have to do, first of all, I have to call a Docker build command. So this Docker build -t churn backend test. So you can try to give your like a container name over here, whatever container that you want. But before that, so you have to get into a folder. So where you have a Docker file. So my Docker file is available inside a backend folder. Here is a Docker file, right? So here is a Docker file. So I'll first of all go inside the backend directory, wherever you have a Docker file, simple, and then try to build this Docker. Sorry, not this one. So let me copy and then Docker build. So just try to call this Docker build -t, and this name can be anything of your choice. You can try to give. So it will try to commence this entire Docker, means it will try to download the operating system. After downloading the operating system, so it is going to do all the installation, whatever I have mentioned inside my Docker file, and then we can try to run the Docker. As simple as that. So this is going to take not more than 60 to 90 seconds of time, depends upon your system and your internet speed, because it is trying to download the operating system and then it is trying to build the entire Docker image for you. And once it will be able to build it, you will be able to see even over here, right? Even over here. So just wait for a couple of seconds, guys, and then once our Docker will be up and running, so we are going to test it. Okay, so looks like it is able to build each and everything. As you can see that it has installed a Linux version, one of the Linux version for me. And here is a location where I can go and I can try to check my Docker is up and running. And if you will closely look into all the commands, so it has executed all of these commands. It has installed a requirement.txt, everything, right? Everything. So Docker image is done. Now, if we will come over here and if you will try to check your image, so yes, there is a image which is available and with the same name, the name that I have given over here, right? Churn backend test, and it is available over here. And this is the size that it is going to occupy. So 3.26 GB is the size. Now, so once this is available, once this image is available, then we can try to run the container. So we are going to write a command called as, sorry, not this one. So Docker run -p, and this is the port number, the port forwarding that we are trying to do, and then churn backend test. This was the image name, right? This was the image name for me. So hit enter, and very soon this entire things will be up and running, and we will be able to test it. So UVCon run, and it looks like it is running at this particular location, and I can try to go inside the Docker and I will be able to see the exact same thing inside the container. So we had an image, yeah, and now I'm trying to execute that image, and this is running at this particular port number. So I can try to check this one. I can try to write /docs as a fast API, and here is a prediction that I will be able to get on /predict. So I can test it the way I have tested before. So try it out, and maybe I can try to send this dummy data. I can try to click on execute, and after execution, so yes, I'm able to see the churn. Churn is equal to 0. Whatever data which I have passed, which was a dummy data. So we are not supposed to pass a string or a string over here, or everywhere we are passing 0, 0, 0. But yeah, we are just trying to do a testing, and yes, testing is successful. And as of now, it's running on my Docker. Yeah, it's running basically on my Docker. So this is the place where it is up and running for me. Now, so once it is up and running for me, once this Docker file is up and running for me, so now we are good to go ahead with the deployment. And as you can see, 200, right? So 200 means it's a successful request, and we are able to get some sort of a response. So everything is up and running in my local system as a Docker image. Now I'm going to use the exact same thing to deploy a backend. So in a very first place, I'm going to deploy a backend, right, on a render. Basically, I have already converted till this point, and then I'm going to deploy a front end in a step by step manner. So in my next lecture, we are going to deploy this Docker file. So with that, thank you so much everyone. Take care and see you again in my next lecture.